that and you're like, screw it, I'm going for it. Yep, we're sticking with it.
Well, I can give you that game number 2 because we've got the Battleground ready. So start with that while the draft after. We'll see if another Nova pops up or not. TFC have chosen Sky Temple, which means SPT chose first pick for this next draft.
Interesting choice. Again, talking about the trends of the Chinese region versus the maps that they most likely are probably going to be able to excel.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I would just go to Dragonshire, Tomb of the Spider Queen, any map, wave clear focus map if I wanted to be able to try and take them out. But we see TFC being the ones going to Sky Temple, and we saw what happened when Tempest decided to do that in the last one.
And this is where we get to see the beauty of what TFC can be when they do play a standard composition. They are very patient. They are waiting. They want you to make a mistake, and they capitalize and push it forward through macro play. In particular, KT4, I think is probably my favorite player on this roster. When he has stitches, man, he's not someone that just throws out hooks left and right and tries to fish in for your opponent. He's waiting for you to overstep your bounds, and then he follows up with the deadly hook to get his team a kill.
I just think that that's so amazing that we have a team that prides themselves on counter-aggressing, even when they have to go to an Eastern Clash and play some of the most aggressive metas. Think China going in and being able to play like that. A lot of times when we talk to teams from non-league regions, they feel like they need to be able to be aggressive. They need to dictate the team fights because they don't get the practice in to be able to excel in the macro game. But that's sort of the difference is these teams do get to actually scrim versus some of the Korean teams that are in HGC even.
I mean, they very much get to, and it's paying off, right? Like the fact that we're seeing TFC already look so successful into that very first game. And I was critical of their ability to react and how far that would push them into the tournament. I'm still skeptical, but right now it's obviously putting up an amazing performance so far. It's just whether or not maybe a greater team might be able to get the outdraft on top of them. But there also is another silver lining I've yet to kind of highlight with the reaction that we see out of Team FaceCheck, and that's a lot of the teams here, if they get outdrafted, they panic. Their idea of how to be able to run the game and adjusting live, even for teams like MVP Black, is very, very apparent. And so if they can consistently make them already feel uncomfortable, maybe they can abuse the fact that these teams are really going to kind of reach when it comes to their strategy in a way to enforce the way they want to play.
Now, if TFC has done any research into SPT, do you think it's too much of a risk to leave Genji up here? Melody C was their Genji player.
Yeah, exactly. I actually was thinking about that in the back of my mind. If I'm a drafter and I come in and I know their Genji player is not available for the tournament, do I just leave it up and risk on the idea that I can get it in the second rotation?
I dominated game number 1, and if they got a reset, even if it wasn't as amazing as Melody C, I assume somebody else on the squad can play it, which we are now confirmed here by SPT. At least they're willing to draft it. But I just go, it's one of those, is this the only way I can lose this game after feeling that confident? TFC is willing to take that risk and trend outward. They're responding to here with the Uther Dahaka.
Get ready for Misaka Genji, god tier player. It's about to go down here. Uther and Dahaka as the answer back here from Team FaceCheck, getting that global pressure, obviously, from the Dahaka, being a little bit more Western style, but good to see. We see that from our Taiwan teams a little bit. They're actually willing to pick up Dahaka more than, say, our Korean teams. And then, of course, you get that Uther for the brawling around the temples. Always great foundation for the team.
Now, there's no Ariel to pair along with that. I'm wondering what sort of hero to enable later on we might have from Uther furthering that draft. But as we look back over to SPT, honestly, everything I know about SPT is kind of out the window right now because we saw Misaka not playing Warrior. Everything changes. If they're going to continue to have Simba on the Warrior, now we just have to go down the line of how far can he change? Does he have to have, we're going to go back to Stitches.
So that's now going to be Simba's hero. I'm assuming is the Stitches there, and then the Rhaegar locked in. I was going to say, if we still see Simba down the Tyrael hype train throughout the remainder of this tournament, and that be his new priority hero, I wouldn't have hated the Illidan Tyrael Genji, sanctification, double dive composition, decent matchup into the Dahaka and the macro focus that Team FaceCheck has been very honest with us in their intent, but they're going to go back to maybe a bit more of their own roots, at least the MSB version of SPT.
Team FaceCheck thinking about what they want to ban out. I am kind of curious. Gosh, it's so hard to think about what would be drafted here with the Simba factor coming in. Would we maybe get double Warrior? We saw a lot of Arthas in the past from Misaka, and it's been a great pickup for the team. Allows for him to bring out the shot calling and going for the fights. Team FaceCheck, deciding they want to go ahead and get rid of Li Ming. We're starting to see that Stitches into a lockdown/Li Ming combo pop up a lot, so we might see these bans more often in the Eastern Clash.
Li Ming ban, maybe we're going to get an Anubarak from TFC. Potentially there's no Li Ming to be able to disintegrate the Cocoon Rhaegar, and all of a sudden you have no Ancestral to help out with Genji if he gets low.
Great against Stitches too if he does decide to go for the Gorge, because instantly the moment you bring out the Cocoon, the target is belched out of Stitches right away.
The Vala ban is a bit curious, though, just because there is nothing majorly screaming other than maybe she's one of the better backlines to be self-sustaining, and I don't think that's the argument here to get rid of that ban. It does feel a bit, you know, maybe outdated to see that adjustment for SPT, but it's also, in the Eastern world, Vala is higher priority than the rest. It's just, again, I do think we'll see a huge meta shift into this tournament as things move forward. Not as drastic as we saw with the double support dominating the Western, because, you know, the rest of the Eastern world doesn't kind of neglect it, but it's going to be another double support the Lunara picked up, and that was why I felt like it's a bit outdated. Lunara just in double support is just flat better.
Double support, probably double warrior for TFC. What does SPT now need to deal with that? SPT, when we asked them before, how do you deal with a double support composition?
Tyrande or Stukov is the two things that I would like to see out of SPT. Either go all in kill composition with the Tyrande Stitches hook composition or the Dead Silence. Otherwise, I mean, how are you going to be able to kill that?
They said that you kill either the melee assassin or the ranged assassin. So something that's going to enable them, I guess, to be able to kill
step
Lunara.
3, kill core.
Kill core also,
was,
yes.
That was step 3 to beating double support composition. So Super Perfect Team will need to find a way to kill Lunara, dive that backline and get rid of her. And right now, most of their kill potential is based off of a hook hitting up into some form of CC that they need to get, because they don't have one yet. They have their totem available, and they elect to move into Sonya as their 4th pick. And we got something fishy coming out for a 5th. It's going to be a Tychus.
Is that a leap? Do we
Yes.
expect a leap?
I believe it.
I expect it, but I was just curious if anybody else has any strong indication that, you know, maybe I missed something in my study of SPT that is all leap all the time, but I do agree with you. I think that leap makes more sense into the style of composition. It's going to work really well with what they have going on. A lot of blow up out of SPT, but it's always double support, and more importantly, the Uther on the other side of the table. Guarding the Ancient King is a, you know, pretty neat talent.
Yeah, and so is Divine Shield. So I was going to say, you're going to have to be able to play around that Uther if you're going to go for an all-in leap Genji explosion in the backline. Final pick for TFC, you're waiting on the Warrior. I still think it's possibly an Anubarak here.
Yeah. I mean, TFC admitted that they liked the Western meta, or at least were playing a bit more Western meta compared to the rest of the teams that we have at the Eastern Clash, and it shows that it could have been any team we had seen play last weekend right now, and still SPT kind of sticking to their guns, a bit more offensive, a bit more skirmish focus, but after not only the performance last game, but just the draft of this one, I really feel like TFC's got the upper hand.
How you feeling, Trick?
Yeah, I'm looking at it, and I think I agree right away with just going with TFC first off what we saw in game number 1, just the current state of what SPT is in. But I like how they adjusted their draft to play around Simba. Simba's only game plan right now is to move in and hit a hook on a target. They don't care which target it is. They grab Tychus to be able to burn tanks in case he does hit a target. So I don't mind it. Let's see how it all pans out.
All right, here in the blue, SPT down 1 game in this best of 3 wings, playing Sonya Misaka on the Genji, Xianxiao playing Tychus, ZZH on Rhaegar, and Simba playing Stitches.
And on the right side, in the red, it will be Team Face Check. Virgil on the Haka, Garnet Devil playing the Bright Wing, Ostinger playing the Lunara, KT4 on a Nubrek, and Kim playing Uther.
We've got the Sonya Genji Dream. I'm super excited to see how this works out for SPT. But I do still think that Team Face Check has shown a lot of resilience being able to deal with the drafts of SPT, so I'm confident that that Anubarak pick, even with the ban on Li Ming, was them being able to control this draft the entire time.
Yeah, number 1 seed in Taiwan, paying off so far, but they need to get one more game here to move on to tomorrow. Simba and crew will go ahead and grab this tower on the top. Interesting enough here, we're going to have the Aija of dismount here for our Genji, which does mean he will be jumping in from the bushes and trying to force some fights. Kind of odd, because typically you see that pickup on Battlegrounds that have smaller lane phases.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want to be able to jump onto your opponents and get those top lane engages. But Dahaka has his own tools for being able to get away from a fight by running into the bushes. So getting a top laner by himself will be difficult. We'll see if that pays off.
I wonder if maybe it's also for Misaka to make sure that he has the cooldown reduction off of that in a way that if he feels like Rhaegar has his work cut out for him between all of the heroes that SPT has, and especially with a player who's not as familiar in playing with the team. That might be where he's going with that as well.
Well, we'll see if that will pay off for him in the top lane. At the same time, got Warpaint for that Sonya, hoping to bully out that top laner. If you do get that one-on-one consistently, it can be a great talent to have. There's always a threat of Brightwing, you know, polymorphing in, bringing in that phase shift and forcing a fight. We'll see how that will break out too. A Super Perfect team and Team Phase Check will now fight over the first 2 temples of the game, as we'll be activating in about 8 seconds.
A lot of members of both teams all the way down in the bottom lane of Sky Temple, but we'll start to head up. Looking to see where SPT wants to make their stand. It seems like they are wanting to get the top temple. A lot of times you see teams do this, focusing on the top temple and just kind of dealing with people kind of poking as much as they can, although Misaka maybe bit off more than he could chew there in the mid, but doing that when they feel like they need a little bit of time to ramp up their composition. And we know that Sonya likes to be ramping up into the 16, the 20 range.
Yeah, really wanting to get those talents online for her. Same time, we just see a Super Perfect team pushing the bottom just a little bit, but they decided to bring all 4 members to the top, while Sonya will be at the top fending for herself. Grabbing a few shots for the moment as Virgil from Team Phase Check will rotate down and try to grab a member from the opposing team. It doesn't quite hit the drag, and you'll see a nice little experience lead kick in for Super Perfect team as they push in that bottom wave and got an extra wave.
SPT did delay pretty well at the mid temple. They want to move in again and see if they can continue to do it. They step onto the point. Sonya could start to run down, but Dahaka has caught her. Virgil making sure to keep an eye on that rotation from Sonya so far, but SPT get onto the point fully with the rotation of Sonya and actually steal the last few shots. Well done.
Nicely done by them. So they're holding that front line. ZZH on the back, keeping up with the heals, and having Misaka on the side. Constantly poking with that Genji is always a scary threat. So good to go for both of our teams. Now I'm kind of wondering who will be moving into the mercenary camps first. And so far, the answer is Super Perfect team, as they're working on the Giants in the bottom left corner. They want to bring some resources down to the bottom side to get their opponents to not deal with the possible push that could be coming in from Sonya on the top. Sonya, very similar to Illidan, if left alone by herself, can be aggressive and break down a fort if Dahaka's not able to clear out that wave.
Yeah, SPT is actually getting both of their camps at once. It is a risky idea, but here in the early game, knowing that TFC doesn't really have any huge advantage to push and not seeing TFC immediately cap their Giants doesn't put the fear into them that TFC are going to look for an invade on the Giants. You really don't have to worry about that on the Bruisers, at least this early on in the game. So it's much more of a concern in the Giants. And in that regard, SPT are able to get both of the camps at once.
Bit of adjustment here for our new bracket level 4, getting better barbs here instead of the dive or even the carapace that we've been seeing for the last couple of tournaments. Idea here to control that Sonya. Try and get it at better barbs near the area where she wants to walk towards, and that way your team can turn around and focus the Genji that might be diving too aggressively, or even the Tychus. I like that adjustment. I am curious to see what we're going to get at level 7, and it will be the dive. So a bit of variation here from Team Phase Check, but don't mind it with Sonya being on the field.
The stun from Impale will do a lot to annoy Sonya, but as long as she has her Whirlwind up, she has Hurricane. So the slows, at least she'll be able to deal with whenever she has the Hurricane up. Virgil coming in with the Brightwing Garnet Devil now too to stop this dive deep into the fort of SPT, and Sonya's starting to take a lot of damage but dodges the drag.
Ooh, sad about that drag missing out there. Wings may be able to get out, and he does do so just fine. But the major push there was that top right corner where that fort came down underneath half health. Now Super Perfect team has a position where if something doesn't work out in the bottom lane, at least they can put pressure on that top lane and maybe get a fort for experience.
Yeah, I'm surprised with the global advantage that TFC didn't hold off on their Bruisers and just deal with SPT getting theirs and then being able to keep one of the globals, particularly Dahaka in the top. But instead, Dahaka is already down here in the bottom, and now Misaka coming in. Brightwing has not phase shifted in yet, only just now doing so. KT4 zoned away from a lot of the team of Team Phase Check and will be the first kill in this fight and the game.
Yeah, big kill there for Super Perfect team, but Lenar's damage is starting to be a little too much. Simba having to treat, so is ZZH, and Xin Zhao low on health but still alive. Wings turns around and puts some damage on Kim, but it's all about the temple now. Who's going to move in and grab it?
And there's that splintered spear. Things might change once SPT has the dive possibilities at level 10. For now, they're doing their best to get a lot of the tempo in the bottom lane. Want to steal as much as they can, especially with Misaka. He always can jump over the wall if necessary to get out.
So what was interesting about that fight, even though a Super Perfect team got the kill, the Slaughter Spear, as you mentioned, putting out so much damage, actually was effectively a kill. Members had to back up, heal on up. Simba finally showing up for the team, but Team Face Check has all 5 of their members as well. Hook comes out on Virgil. He'll be brought down to the bush, keeping up that front line and staying in a spot where he can hit a drag is going to be enough to keep the team to be a bit careful. Here comes that big impale. It's going to hit both Sonya and Tychus.
Polymorph immediately following the Burrow Charge too. Simba's in trouble, but again, the Lunara is so good at being able to poke down multiple members of SPT at once. Rhaegar gets hit by a stun, throws down the healing totem, and is healing himself up through the poison just barely.
Man, both times Super Perfect Team is getting engages, not quite the engages they would want, but they don't have the kill potential of Lunara, who is just putting on so much pressure that even Rhaegar himself can't keep up with the healing. It's going to go ahead and result in Team Face Check grabbing both the temple and the first fort of the game on the bottom left side.
So you can see the work that SPT has cut out for themselves with their composition. Things will change once they get 10, but it remains the same that they are going to need to be able to blow somebody up. They have a little bit more wiggle room with Ancestral Healing. They also have Gorge, so they can pull someone back to them. But the Lunara, if left unchecked, if they cannot get the first kill, and even sometimes if you do get the first kill, if it's not Lunara, she may still be able to push back SPT.
Man, I was really hoping for that leap at level 10.
You know, I was too.
Oh, man. Well, of course you were, man. Can we get that audio quality again from you, Gilly?
No.
Whoa.
Oh, that was...
That was Gilly, 100%. She nailed it. Good job.
I'm going to give that one a 6.5 out of 10 trick.
But I was hoping for that leap because how are you going to get on top of Lunara unless a hook connects, which is difficult to hit on Lunara anyways. You're not going to really get into a spot where you can burst it down. Sure, you have that Dragon Blade, which should be annoying enough, but you have Brightwing on the right side who'll be able to bring in the Polymorph, also drop in the Emerald Wind. There's a lot of control here for Team Face Check. I kind of wish they went on the all idea of just killing Lunara, because if you kill Lunara, Team Face Check and their entire composition crumbles.
Yeah, and Team Face Check has a perfect composition once again for their counter-engage style. Stitches goes in for a Gorge, Divine Storm, or Cocoon, or Isolation, or Emerald Wind. There are so many ways that Team Face Check can stop Super Perfect Team, and now all they have to do is control the battleground, put SPT in a position where they feel like they have to take an unfavorable or risky fight, and then TFC can do what they do best.
Well, for now, Team Face Check is controlling the map, as you mentioned. Grabbing the Mercs
Here
in the
it
top right
comes.
corner, holding in the middle at the same time. Here comes KT4, and you know what he does? He just goes ahead and he hits his E button, and he's out of there.
Yeah, there's not really a whole lot of follow-up drafted for that. The Cocoon comes out on Sonya. Don't need to worry about Gorge after that. Odin's going to be dropped out in the corner. Divine Storm dropped down. And Misaka starts to charge in with the Dragon Blade. A lot of grouping from TFC, but they use Emerald Wind to kick off the fight.
Solid Ancestral Healing, but still not enough as Simba gets low, but Brightwing gets bursted down. Those wings turns around the fight. Xin Zhao bringing in the Tychus, helping out in the auto attacks. KT4 in trouble as well, and Super Perfect Team find the moment and get it.
Yeah, Wings could not be dealt with after the initial Cocoon was taken out by SPT, and SPT walk away with a 4-for-1 trade in that fight. A lot of the heroics of TFC were used fairly early on. Lunara ended up being in trouble, an issue. There's not quite the same healing that you have with an Auriel Lunara.
Yeah, the way Team Face Check actually positioned in that fight, it felt as if they thought it was already won. They grouped up pretty heavily, the Dragon Blade came out, and they expected to have kills. The problem was Ancestral Healing connected, and sometimes, even though I think Sonya's going to have a hard time against Lunara, Sonya's still a hard target to actually kill. And she was able to move forward, get the force fight, drop in the spear, and bring down Brightwing with the aid of Tychus. A Super Perfect Team will take the opportunity that was presented to them by Team Face Check and completely secure 3 kills.
All right, they also secure the boss, and there's 2 temples up. SPT prioritizing getting the top. There is no global hero, only sort of the pseudo-global of Misaka who can move around fast on that Genji, but otherwise they can't spread out in the way that TFC can when they're able to control the temple phase. They want to make sure that they can get someone tanky who can get herself out if necessary on that top temple, and otherwise try to see if they can find anyone a little bit out of place from TFC, especially looking at that bottom temple phase. Man, and nobody has even started the bottom temple yet, Trick.
Yeah, they're waiting out here as the boss will be cleaned up, and we're going to see an aggressive play from Super Perfect Team. They turn around and they focus Stitches, who is out of position. The polymorph into the Divine Storm will be enough. Stitches does fall, and now Team Face Check can go ahead and grab that temple that was missing out on someone holding it.
Yeah, I was a little bit concerned with how long the delay because of the boss. SPT were able to get one temple, but finding a Stitches kill is always a nice way to ensure that you can get the rest of the temple, and that allows Team Face Check to not get further and further behind. They're definitely behind structurally, and not in a way that you would like to be, but they're starting to catch up now and taking down, sieging out that final fort for SPT.
I'm still thinking about that last fight that we had, the mid fight, where we saw Super Perfect Team get into an engage.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that I want to see from Team Face Check is, oh, hang on, well, there's a kill. They're starting to find
Picks?
moments where they get
Were you going to
picks.
say picks?
Picks are great. It's exactly what I wanted. Another thing I want to see from them is that Cocoon. They're using it pretty aggressively. They used it on Sonya after they already had stuns available to lock her down. Use that for that Dragon Blade Genji. That's the only way that I see Super Perfect Team getting a lot of damage in fights to actually break them down.
Yeah.
Here's another fight in the middle.
Yeah, I was even going to say, I think maybe they used it aggressively initially from that because they knew that Gorge was already down.
True.
But totally agree. You know that you are the counter-engaged team. You don't need to be the ones aggressing necessarily. But they've caught up. They're only slightly behind in experience at this point. They're using the time and the staggered deaths they caused to siege one of the keep towers and catch them up even closer to those these level 16 talents.
Even with these few picks that we've seen from Team Face Check, Super Perfect Team is still ahead in kills, ahead in experience, and also ahead in forts. They've broken down all 3 forts on the right side for Team Face Check, so they are only down to their keeps and a core, while Super Perfect Team continues to keep up their pressure. And sadly, Simba comes in for a hook, but Brightwing is able to go ahead and back on home.
Barely.
Barely.
I got pretty scared there.
It grazed her wing, and that's for sure. She felt that one.
Level 16 here, that's a huge talent spike for Sonya, getting Nerves of Steel so she can have more survivability, even comboing that later on at 20 with Ignore Pain. We've also got Titan Grenade, and with the grenade build now, Tychus can try to chunk down one of those warriors who'll be up in the front. Dahaka may be a prime pick for that because he didn't, again, take adaptation. TFC always favors going into isolation, even getting contagion at level 20.
Titan Grenade will be quite a threat for that front line. Hopefully they'll be able to hold on that front line long enough for Lenara to put out her damage. Virgil's going to be the target here for a hook, but he's able to go ahead and burrow right underneath it. And for the moment, Team Face Check in a spot where Super Perfect Team could engage on them. They're trying to get the tug of war to go in their favor as they push in the top.
And this is a really aggressive Lunara who's going to get caught up by the Gorge now. Cocoon lets Ostinger out, and then she's able to jump over with the Leaping Strike. Again, doing that with the isolation there too. Divine Storm drops down a whole bunch of SPT, but Sonya is still staying strong.
Ancestor healing right there. The Dragon Blade will be able to continue moving forward uncontested. Kim finally bringing out a last-second stun, but it's not enough as Team Face Check is going to melt the Super Perfect Team.
Virgil goes down as well. 3 kills for nothing for SPT. And once again, just as a temple phase has spawned, Garnet Devil dodges the hook with a nice ice block. But the problem is that these kills, both teams are getting kills. Albeit SPT is getting a lot more than TFC. We're at 8-3. But SPT always seems to find the kills at the opportune moment that they're able to get a lot more done. TFC got the kills, got the picks, the staggered deaths when they could take down a couple of towers. But SPT get it when they've got a temple, and that is a lot of structural damage.
Super Perfect Team is just a little bit more controlled in their team fights. If they get the hook in the Gorge, even if they're not getting the immediate burst afterwards, Team Face Check is expending a lot of heroics and abilities and positioning just to make sure to save that target, which eventually allows for the Genji to move in for the aggressive fight. He's brought in Dragon Blade multiple times without being locked down, but Benediction Uther is used to keep Sonya on the back line, which is kind of hard to pull off when, one, you have Nerves of Steel into that Wrath, the Ancestor Healing coming out. We saw them use 3 heroic abilities and 5 stuns, or 5 attempted engages to stop that Sonya. And while the isolation did connect and she wasn't able to whirlwind, the Ancestral Healing negated it all.
Yeah, and that's the problem sometimes you get in when you have a Lunara with a double warrior, double support. If you don't have someone who can confirm those kills off of the poisons, and you have someone who can heal herself back up as well as Sonya can, and then even the rest of the picks of SPT. Stitches has a lot of health. You've got Tychus, who has an Odin normally, but Genji is low in health, and if you stun lock him the way you do, not letting him use his mobility, he is a prime target for a pick.
Saka is slightly overextended. Simba is hoping to go ahead and get into a fight and maybe prevent anything else from breaking forward, but he may have found himself on the wrong side of battle as he's being focused down by Ostinger. We also have Sonya at the same time spinning to win, but it's a 3v5, and I don't think it's a win you can get.
I love the focus on other targets besides Sonya. Just look at this here. It's a 5v3, and it takes forever for TFC to be able to take her out. Finally, they do bring her down, though.
Boss, go for it. There
Yeah.
we go. They hop on it. Get something rolling here, Team Face Check. Finally, with their 3 kills, they'll be able to move in and get this boss here. Now, I would like for them to have Dahaka go back. In fact, he already has. Start clearing out that bottom lane. And this 4-man right here, pushing this bottom lane. Go for the keep walls. Maybe start breaking down the keep. You have 1 full level before a super perfect team gets to 20 and can maybe force a team fight.
Yeah, they can always push along with that boss, and then once all the respawns happen, then they can regroup, go back, and start to focus on the temples after that. But they are still behind, and those temple shots first have to go on to the final 4 of SPT, whereas there is already a keep that is very nearly down for TFC. The problem was it took them quite a while to get that boss, and they cleared out the giants, getting their own giants. So it looks like instead they're just going to rotate up and try to get the positional advantage on one of the temples.
This is a safe maneuver, but I would have liked to see a little bit more of an aggressive maneuver. You talked about it. Being able to push that boss in, even if you don't put a single lick of damage on top of that keep, at least sparing it all the way to the keep will be more effective than just going straight to the temples. You can come back to the temples afterwards when you see that your opponents are 5-man defending that boss is pushing in. See, all it got was a keep wall. These lasers will be okay. They'll be able to break down some damage on top of those keeps, and they do get level 20, but I feel like there was a more aggressive maneuver they could have had.
Yeah, the nice thing for TFC at least is that it was super safe to be able to get both of the temples, and they got them for a long time because of their globals. Now they can leave Brightwing on the top. Dahaka already used his Brush Shocker, so he is actually going to come with the rest of the team. We've got a Cocoon.
Cocoon comes out. Can they lock it down? See Garnet Devil. He's the one that's going to walk forward and isolate this target. They will get the target on the right side. It is Rhaegar. Rhaegar, though, is turning away, and Uther actually winds up dying due to the hook and gorge.
But that was fine because he has been redemption. He's going to be back
what a
here
cheater.
soon. It was so nice. It was perfectly well done. He comes out of the ghost form. It's a stun, and the team follows up for the kill.
Redemption paying off there for Team Face Check as they get 2 takedowns, looking for a third. Ostinger may have overextended. Hook comes out, and Simba helps get the kill on Lunara.
Sokka there with the Dragon Blade getting the kill too, but there's still the stuns. The problem is this is a double warrior, double support now without that Lunara. Maybe going just a little bit too aggressively with Ostinger, but in the end, TFC are still able to take down the keep.
And they'll have a total of 4 members pushing in for the core. It's just Simba here and Tychus for defense. Can they hold this? It's not looking like it as suddenly Catapults are starting to make their way towards the core. The shield's going away, dropping down to 90, dropping down to 80. Cocoon even being used to make sure the damage here. Tychus cannot be used, but Simba with Hungry Stitches is delaying.
He's jumping forward, getting as many people as he possibly can. Emerald Wind separates once again. It's taking a while, but TFC is still staying strong on top of the core of SPT and will eventually bring it down to win Game 2 and the series.
Almost had a miracle defense there, crazy to see, but TFC getting the 2-0 victory over their opponents. You gotta say, well done, man. Didn't expect them to come out here and play so well in the team fights.
They did excellently there. There were some moments where Ostinger maybe was super aggressive. We even saw the Giant Killer and Invigorating Spores, so not having the increased auto attack range with the Starwood Spear, instead favoring the attack speed just so they really could make sure and get everything out of the poison, out of the Giant Killer. And Ostinger was up in front sometimes, but in the end, still, TFC were able to get the win. What do you think of that game, Dread?
I mean, there was a lot of back and forth at a lot of different moments. And, you know, I feel like there was a huge argument for the double support meta displayed there for TFC. There was a lot of team fights that just didn't open as they would like. And then suddenly they were like, but we can out-sustain our opponents.
Right.
I mean, the Wrath of the Berserker pickup, instead of moving into Leap, I thought it was going to be Leap just because China we know to be so aggressive, right? But it had so much value whenever all the members of TFC tried to all-in onto Sonya, popped the Wrath, she survived, and every time that happened and they tried to kill Sonya, they won the fight. But every time that they ignored the Sonya, worked on people like Simba, they were way more successful.
Yeah, I think more than anything, what I was most impressed with was TFC's ability and understanding that they needed to adapt what they were doing in team fights when they started not going their way.
I think that's, you know, that's a big criticism you and I both have of a lot of teams. Like, that is probably one of the biggest indicators of a great team is if you can actually do that on the fly, because those who can't essentially can be beaten in the draft because everything doesn't work the way that they want. They'll begin to panic. But if you can identify the problems as it's happening, the timer that is, 15 minutes roughly, to figure out how do I solve this map. It's more like 10 because let's be honest, you can fall so far behind. But it was really cool to see that from TFC and a well-deserved 2-0.
But a closer game for SPT this time, playing a more standard strategy than, you could say, definitely more standard than game number 1. So showing that there is still hope despite the fact that they have a sub in playing during this tournament.
I would agree. I was pleasantly surprised with Super Perfect team in that game. With how game 1 went and the draft of TFC, I personally felt like it was going to be a lot more lopsided, but they showed great amount of teamwork. Even, Misaka got caught out a little bit too many times onto the Genji. We questioned, now that they don't have Melody C, who will be the Genji player. But if they bring that back a little bit more, that could have been their game.
Well, we're going to go down to the stage now and check in with Trixler for an interview with our victors.
Got him.
Thank you, Gilly. I am here with Team Face Check's very, very own KT4. KT4, I just gotta go ahead and start it out here. What happened in game 1?
他说你在第一场游戏的，第一场赛局的时候发生了什么事？你玩得这么好？
我本来就有在练习啊，这是正常水平。
He said they have been practicing very much, so he's just doing what he can do and showing the result of his practice.
Did you guys expect the Nova Chromie? Was that something that was quite crazy to see?
他说你们看到你的克罗米，你们会预想到克罗米发挥这么大的作用吗？
其实当我们看到我们有奥利尔跟邱嘉丽之后，整个就很安心了。
He said when he see that they have Alder and Chogal, he said using Chromie will be very satisfying and very relaxed.
Awesome, very cool. Well, you're here on home soil here in Taiwan. How's it feel to have a crowd here cheering for you guys?
他说，因为在这边是台湾的主场，那你觉得在这个主场情况下，台下观众都是台湾人，帮你做加油打气，那你有什么感想？
非常开心吧，因为这还是第一次在自己国家打这种比较大型的比赛。
He said he's very happy. It's the first time in his own country having a tournament, and with all the people down is from his own country, and he's very happy with it.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on your victory. We will get more teams from Taiwan as Soul Torturers will be taking on L5 next. We'll be right back after a commercial break. Thank you very much. Thank you.